we heard Sten's opinion about what is a startup. First of all, thanks for coming to Mauritius, Sten. I hope I didn't spoil your vacation. I'll go around the panel. I'll ask each of you, what's your opinion? What is a startup? I would like you to keep it short, please, because we are a lot of people. I'll start with Suraj. Please feel free to introduce yourself. And my question is, what is a startup?
Thank you for the question. In fact, I'm not going to repeat what Sten has said with regards to the definition of a startup. But to put it very simply, it's someone, normally a young person, who has an idea and who wants to exploit this idea to add value, to commercialize the product or anything that he has to commercialize, right? But then we have to be a bit careful with regards to startup, with regards to the area of technology and innovation. We're not talking of startup in other area, but if we relate it to the area of technology and innovation, it makes a lot of difference. Because here we are talking of a startup not needing a vehicle, not needing machinery, not needing a building. It's only sufficient for that startup to have an innovative idea, has sufficient inventiveness to move forward its idea and to be able to use technology, the internet, cloud computing, to market this idea. So this makes a very big difference in the area of technology and innovation. So this is very important to mention, and maybe we're going to have time to explain what government is actually doing to promote startup, to promote incubation, to promote the young people to embrace technology and innovation, to add value to the market offerings in terms of technological solutions.
Okay, I'll go on to Ish. What's a startup?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ish, and I would like to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity here. And of course, I would like to thank RSL Digital. By the way, I'm a Linux system administrator at La Sentinelle. So talking about startups, there was something that Sten mentioned, which is very interesting, when he said that at one moment you have nothing, and you work on something, and the next moment you have built something. This is more about the culture of startups. For example, in Mauritius, we have I'm tempted to use the word culture, but it's not the right word. Like in Mauritius, we have the tendency to confuse SMEs, small and medium enterprises, with startups. For example, startup has more the risk element, like you identify a problem. You get the problem, you think about a solution, you have the solution. Now that you have a working solution, you have to sell it. The thing about SME is, you look at a business, oh, that business is working. I have the same skills as that person, so let me copy that and do the same thing. This is more about SMEs, somebody doing poultry farming. It's not a startup. It's something existing, you're just copying the idea and doing it. Startups has the risk element, like Sten himself said, 90% most probably of the startups fail. And the remaining that succeed is what we see, like Skype, like some of the companies that we know. In Mauritius, I can't say that we have that culture right now. Maybe with the younger generation, yes, they are very enthusiastic about it, but I'm yet to see it happening in 2016.
Thank you, Ish. Denis, in French or in English, what's a startup?
I prefer to speak in French. Sorry for that, Sten. Je pense qu'il faut replacer l'univers des startups, parce qu'on a déjà bien évoqué, je pense que Sten a bien précisé ce que c'était qu'une startup. Je pense qu'il faut le replacer dans le contexte d'un changement de ces 10 dernières années dans le monde et d'une révolution numérique et digitale qui bouscule tous les codes mondiaux, qui est un peu comparable à la révolution industrielle il y a 100 ans en arrière, et qui donne accès effectivement, quel que soit l'endroit où on soit dans le monde, à un public large et à monter très vite une société qui est scalable, qui peut adresser le monde entier. Et c'est un peu, je pense, la définition de la start-up, c'est qu'aujourd'hui on peut, de Maurice ou d'Estonie ou de n'importe où dans le monde, avoir une idée et la rendre, la diffuser dans le monde entier et atteindre une taille de compagnie comme on a vu dans les 5 dernières années avec des millions de clients dans le monde. Et pour moi, c'est ça la définition de la start-up, c'est-à-dire qu'on part d'une idée et on peut arroser le monde avec son idée et avoir des clients partout dans le monde très très vite.
Merci Denis. Donald, what's a startup?
Yes, I mean, we have a classical definition of a startup. I don't think it's necessary to repeat, but I think what would be interesting to think of is, maybe as Ish alluded to, where in Mauritius, do we have a right environment for startups or not? And why not think about startup à la Mauricienne? I don't know what that means, but I think that the objective is to be creative, is to be innovative, and to have an idea which is really totally new and never thought of. And I think when we think about startups here, maybe that's the mindset we need to take.
Thank you, Donald. Vivek, also same question. What's a startup?
Right, okay, so my take on startup is that initially the startup used to be about a product or service. Now with the latest technologies available now, like cloud and all, the entry barrier to having a product or service built has drastically gone down. It used to be a multi-million-dollar investment before. So definitely it's not about coming up with a bright product or service only. It's about coming up with a scalable business model. That's the key point of how the startup should be defined. And also about that person or the founder who has a vision, what he could see, which doesn't exist, and bringing the entire team together to achieve that vision. I think that's startup.
Thank you, Vivek. I think Sten, thank you. You were talking about Skype. You were telling us that Skype is a success story. We are not sure of it because I don't think anybody in this panel use Skype. Let's talk about success stories. I'll ask each of you to comment about it, because to have a startup scene in Mauritius, because we're talking about startup scene, I mean people getting together to, I won't say innovate, to create, to come up with ideas, we need to have a startup scene, and we also need to have at least 1 or 2 success stories, because we're going to look at the others and say, okay, I can do this myself. So I'll start with Donald this time. What would you say about success stories of startups in Mauritius?
Yes, I think that's a very important point, and I picked up on what Sten was talking about earlier. I really wish that we can have 1 or 2 models, I would call it models, in Mauritius, which would then fuel a whole dynamism and creativity in Mauritius. My own experience, I'll go back almost 20 years. We did something in Mauritius in '94, which was very innovative at that time. I'll be very brief about it. It's a system to facilitate international trade procedures. At that time, we were amongst the leaders. And when I think back...
I think you were talking about TradeNet.
That's right. Okay. You know about it, yes. And myself, personally, I've benefited a lot from it, because since then I've been, let's say, in demand. Sten said about some similarities between Mauritius and Estonia, which I very, very firmly believe in. Small is beautiful. I think you know what I mean by that. Because small means we can move very quickly, we can get people around very quickly, and we can innovate and improvise very quickly.
I think you are talking about agility. You've got to be agile.
Agility and decision making. So I think that's a very important characteristic. The nice thing now is the world is all connected. We are not isolated. We are physically very remote, but we can lift Skype and talk to Sten anytime. So I think we have some very unique ingredients. So I think our efforts should try to be on helping each other out and see how we can trigger those one or two success stories which then will serve as role models and show the way for our other innovative minds.
I'll turn to Denis. Is there a success story you can share with us about startups in Mauritius?
Malheureusement, non. Enfin, je ne connais pas dans la définition de la start-up qu'on vient d'évoquer, je ne connais pas moi de start-up issue de Maurice. Je pense que les clés pour avoir un succès, avoir un terreau pour créer des start-up sont trois points. C'est d'avoir l'éducation, d'avoir l'écosystème en place, et puis d'avoir effectivement l'accès au capital pour pouvoir accélérer les idées. Et je pense que c'est sur ces clés-là qu'on verra naître des startups à Maurice. Comme vous le disiez, on est déjà connecté, donc l'accès, je dirais, au monde, même si Maurice est isolé dans le milieu de l'océan Indien, est facile aujourd'hui. J'utilise Skype tous les jours pour travailler avec mes clients, et on a des formidables outils, et donc il faut travailler sur les 3 points pour avoir des startups, peut-être, j'espère, du niveau de Skype à Maurice. Donc l'éducation, créer cet esprit d'entrepreneuriat chez les étudiants, chez les jeunes, pour qu'ils puissent porter leurs idées, les faire avancer et les rendre concrètes. L'écosystème pour que tout le monde puisse échanger et travailler ensemble, parce qu'une start-up, c'est jamais une spécialité, mais c'est toujours plusieurs. Donc il faut que les gens puissent travailler ensemble en venant d'univers différents, que ce soit l'ingénieur, la finance, le marketing, pour créer le deuxième point du succès. Et je pense que, heureusement, nous avons la chance à Maurice d'avoir du capital et des investisseurs potentiels. Donc je ne pense pas que ce point est à beaucoup travailler. Il faut qu'on travaille les 2 premiers points pour avoir des belles histoires à raconter à la prochaine émission sur des startups futures de Maurice.
Denis, I heard of something called, I think, La Plage or something like this. Can you tell us some stuff?
Voilà, avec un certain nombre d'investisseurs du milieu, je dirais, start-up entre guillemets, à Maurice, on porte un projet qui va se réaliser au mois de février, avec aussi un partenariat avec le gouvernement mauricien, d'un incubateur accélérateur qui va se trouver à Eben et qui sera justement l'endroit pour accueillir l'écosystème et créer l'écosystème à Maurice, de façon à rassembler tous les gens qui sont un peu aux 4 coins de l'île. Pardon. Et qui déjà travaillent ou ont lancé des startups, il y en a plusieurs, et de pouvoir les rassembler dans un lieu, parce qu'on le voit de partout dans les capitales dans le monde, les incubateurs accélérateurs sont des formidables outils pour accélérer ce type de projet.
Merci Denis. Ish, any success story you could share with us, please?
Well, to be frank about success stories regarding startups in Mauritius, I would say most of the business success stories that have been maybe reported in the press, in magazines, business magazines, etc., quite frankly, they refer to small and medium enterprises, not really startups with the idea of solving a problem, but rather it's a business idea. They're making money out of that. So success stories of startups, they do not really match. I do not have anyone that I can cite off.
Suraj, could you share any success stories you heard of or which can inspire us?
You see, we have to look at this area of startup more broadly. I'm not going to talk of success story for the time being, but I'm going to focus on the ecosystem that we need to create really this startup environment and to create this environment of innovation and creativity. And I think it is important as representative of the ministry to highlight a very important aspect, is that it is, I think, the first time in our history that we have now a ministry for innovation. And it means a lot in terms of the signal that government wants to convey, to promote whatever has to do with innovation, with creativity, with inventiveness. And it's important as strategy that we create the right environment. Donald was talking of the right environment, Denny was talking of the ecosystem, and this is exactly what government wants to create. And I don't know whether it is opportune to mention about a joint initiative, a PPP initiative, to set up an incubator, accelerator within the Eben Cyber City. So this is a joint partnership between government and the private sector. Precisely as Sten was mentioning, when we embark on a startup venture, it's a risky business. And we want to, government and the private sector, particularly Laplace, wants to take this element of risk and to support the startups to grow and to be flying on its wing. Yeah.
Thank you, Suraj. I'll pass on to Vivek. Do you have a success story? Are you a success story?
Right. I would say it's a bit early. We have been incorporated for last 9 months and in operation for last 6 months. So I think it will be very early to term us as a success. But what I can share with you is our experience of Mauritius. I think that somewhere answers the question, if not completely part. So from my previous assignment, the motivation to launch this startup, which is 100% cloud focused, building products and solutions on new era technologies like analytics, data visualizations, IoT and others. The motivation was that there was an opportunity that could be seen in African markets, and it was the risk of not doing was much bigger than going ahead and doing it, and that what motivated me to quit the last job and to start this startup. Now, as any startup would, so the first challenge was to raise the funds, and that's where the Mauritius story comes. And one of the questions when I was trying to raise funds, especially from outside Mauritius, was the question being asked was why you want to build this base in Mauritius, right? And especially if the markets are Africa, why not get close to where the business is and put the hub in a place like Nairobi, which is one of the most upcoming IT hub in Africa continent. Eventually, the decision to have the base in Mauritius was put into an execution because of the fact that the comfort level of investors for putting the money in a Mauritian-based entity and creating the kitty out here was much higher. So I think that somewhere also helps. So being a very well-regulated jurisdiction and other benefit that comes. So investors were very comfortable to say, okay, let's have the kitty in Mauritius, which will have the investments coming in, and then we put the base in Mauritius, and then we can take the business into Africa. So that's my part of a contribution to the, not really that we are a success, but we seem to have started on the right foot.
Okay, I won't say we are a glaring success. So let's try and figure out, are there any hurdles, any impediments stopping the growth or stopping us from seeing startups in Mauritius? I'll start with Suraj.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, definitely. When you're starting small, you're not visible, and you have an innovative idea, you want to exploit that innovative idea, you want to market that innovative idea. So there are a number of hurdles that comes along when you want to start a startup, and you are maybe one person or a group of people wanting to start something innovative. First is the market, your visibility. Yeah? So, for instance, Skype started very small. If you look at many examples, in fact, we have tens of examples of startup being, let's say, taken over by big multinational like Skype, taken over by Microsoft. Yeah. So one is your visibility, very important, and this is important why government has to assist the startup to make them more visible and to promote their product. Second is funding, very important to start with the seed capital. And this is exactly what government wants to support. The government of Maurice, if you give me time later on, I'm going to tell you what is the model that we are conceptualizing based on what we've seen in Estonia in September last year. Yeah, so very important, the capital, the marketing, the coaching, the networking, all the permits and so on that is required to start up your business. But also one very important aspect, and I think we have a very big role to play as government, is to create the demand for the startup. Just to give you one single example, we have a lot of potential of mobile applications. Not only the private sector, but a lot of potential in the public sector. I think it's important to create this market for the startups to be able to fly on its own. Like, for instance, who is going to, let's say, quality stamp the product developed by the startup? Very important. So I think this type of support is extremely important, and this is what we are creating right now, presently, with regards to the initiative that we're launching, government and the private sector together.
Why is La Plage different from what we have seen before? For example, I think everybody has heard of Eben Accelerator. What's the difference between Eben Accelerator and La Plage?
I can't talk for Eben because this is not our initiative, but then it's important to understand the model that we want to create in terms of public and private partnership. So I think it's important to know that the private sector is best at doing what it has to do in terms of agility, in terms of getting things move faster. Whereas government is more like a facilitator, right? So if we put these two, let's say, together, I think we have a very good mix. For instance, I'm talking for our contribution to the accelerator incubator that is going to be set up in a few weeks' time, because this has already been announced by cabinet in November this year. Yeah. So what we are providing is space at very affordable cost, let's say subsidized cost in terms of rental. We are providing free rental for the incubees. We are providing free internet connectivity. We are providing a stipend. We are providing all the coaching and mentoring that is required to be able to grow, and all the support that is required for you to connect to institutions, to banks, to getting permits and so on and so forth. Right? Whereas the, let's say, private sector part is more looking at markets, marketing, and ensuring that the startups grow and find new markets, connect to venture capitalists, collect business angels. And I think this is a model that we are betting upon to make it a success. And we are very sure that we're going to move this project of Incubate Accelerator forward successfully.